innocent bystanders here, we come into contact with this stuff because it's around us, it's in our communities. And this is the one that really scares me, is because we have this accidental exposure issue. You know, you could be walking your grandkids through the park and all of a sudden picks up a stray needle with gosh knows what and gets poked with it. Now we have a very serious health, almost emergency. Or also too, you know, when we were dealing with a lot of the methamphetamine manufacturing, there's a lot of hazardous chemicals that go into making these drugs and things like that. And most people are just gonna either dump them on the side of the highway or just leave them laying around where any of us could come across it. And that really scares me, to be honest. So like I said, we'll touch a little bit on meth labs here and some of the concerns that we have with them. We haven't seen as many, but I'm sure they still exist. You go to the next one. So a lot of these chemicals that are used in basically manufacturing methamphetamine are very flammable and prone to explosion and things like that. And one disturbing trend we were kind of seeing too is they basically use like a 2-liter soda bottle to kind of mix all this chemical up. And a lot of times too, they'll just throw it in a ditch alongside Highway 29 and then come back in a little bit and go get it once the chemical reaction's kind of finished. But what we don't realize is if you just, you know, you're out along the highway and someone's trying to pick up trash and make our county cleaner, they can come across that and really put themselves in a very dangerous situation. Oh, actually, I'm gonna go back and then just click on the video. So here's kind of a quick video on what you can, kind of how dangerous this stuff really is. So these are obviously trained professionals trying to, yeah, there it goes. So these are people trying to clean up what was known to be a meth lab. You'll kind of, as the video progresses, you'll start to see the chemical reaction kind of swirling, and then ultimately what happens when the container, if the container breaches. So, and that's the kind of stuff that you could come across just sitting alongside a roadside here. So that's really scary. Like I said, there's the hazards to public safety are not just if you're involved in it. You can get basically exposed to this stuff just doing your normal daily routine. And that's not just for meth and more dangerous drugs too. Obviously, as more states are legalizing marijuana, marijuana is coming in too. There's a lot of different marijuana processes too that can be extremely dangerous. One of them is what's called butane hash oil, or honey oil they call it because it's a yellowish color. Basically consists of taking a PVC tube, packing it full of as much plant material as you can, taking a butane cartridge, shoving it in the top. You run the butane through the plant material, it takes all the THC out, and basically forms an oil at the bottom. People that use that stuff love it because it's very concentrated, but obviously anytime you're messing around with butane and heat, bad things can happen. So actually I'll go to the next one and we'll do a video on that one. So here's a video of what can go wrong with kind of that process. If we don't have sound, that's fine. We can just kind of progress through it. So like I said, they're running the butane through the plant material here to try and extract that oil. And then they basically boil off the butane because nobody wants to eat butane or anything. But obviously anytime you're putting flammable products on a heat pad, kaboom, explosion. And that's not just in the backyards and things like that. There was actually a commercial facility in Colorado operating in a completely legal and regulated facility, and we top of the line stainless kitchen grade equipment. And they had a pretty disturbing situation here, and this video will kind of show that. This one's a little bit graphic, I do apologize, but like I said, it kind of really illustrates the real dangers that are out there when we're messing around with that stuff. So basically they had a butane extraction method going there, and simply just opening the lid, and those two people, my understanding is they both made it out okay, but obviously that gentleman on the bottom there was exposed to some severe burns. So, and this is in a controlled setting, so could you imagine this going on a street corner in somebody's basement? Not that we've really had an issue with it, you know, with large scale fires or things like that, but it's definitely something we're always on alert for because it can happen. So, we'll go to the next one. So we were kind of talking about drugs causes public health problems, drugs causes public safety problems, but the one I don't think that gets enough lip service is really the economics of the drug side. And I think this is really one of the reasons why, unless we deal with it, the drug problem's never really going to go away. Because when money comes involved, it's really hard to make something disappear. So, for example, you can, now granted, this was made back before a lot of the states legalized, and California was really one of the only ones at the time. But basically you could buy marijuana for about $1,200 a pound out in California, drive it back to Wisconsin, and then you could sell it for about $3,000 to $4,000 a pound. So obviously there's a substantial amount of money to be made off of this. So unless we start to basically facilitate some sort of deterrent, people are going to keep doing it regardless of what the laws are because they're making so much darn money. So, same thing with cocaine. Cocaine purchased about $1,200 an ounce, and you can sell it for almost $1,800 an ounce. So there's a significant profit margin there as well. Heroin, same thing. Heroin is usually sold in points, which are 1/10 grams or 0.1 grams. You can buy heroin, $2,000 an ounce, and sell it out for $200 a point, which you're making profits almost 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. So unless we address that financial incentive to bring these things into town, we're never really going to stop that because people are just going to look at the sheer dollar signs of it and go, I don't care about the public health problem, I don't care about the public safety problem, I'm making money. So unless we address that, I don't think we're ever really going to be able to deal with it. And same thing with meth too, like I said, $600 to $800 you can purchase an ounce for and sell it for almost double what you paid for it. So a little bit risky. I'd prefer everybody invest in the stock market, but like I said, it is what it is. So, like I said, we kind of outlined that drugs are a complex problem. They got a lot of different things that are going on with the drug problem. So then the big question is how do we fix it, right? That's the $1 million question, and believe me, if I had all the answers, I'd probably be running for governor or something. But the way I look at it is when I'm tasked with dealing with this drug problem in Shawano County, if we can kind of break it down and identify each of the problem areas, let's take it out piece by piece. So if we go to the next slide here, like I said, kind of how I broke it down into the 4 areas, well, how are we addressing each, right? Well, the biggest one, the lack of awareness and understanding, is giving presentations like this, putting the word out there. This is what we're seeing. This is what to look for. These are some things that you should be aware of. Like going out in the community, engaging each one of you, and by having each of you be invested in listening to me and giving me the time to kind of educate everybody, it really helps deal with that lack of awareness and understanding. So we can kind of take that one off the board. Now, then we move into the area of how do we address the economic problem. Obviously, as long as people are making that much money off of these drugs, they're going to keep doing it. So how do we address that? The way we address that, unfortunately, our district attorney's office, our local judges, are kind of getting on board with that, where people that are not necessarily dealing with addiction, but are getting involved with these drugs solely as a source of business, we're seeing harsher sentences, longer periods, more asset forfeiture associated with it. I don't know if each of you follows the paper closely, but right now we're in the process of going through a large conspiracy case where an individual from the Milwaukee area basically located to the Shawano County area for the sole purpose of getting everybody hooked on drugs and making a ton of money. In fact, he called heroin his defense because he knew that as long as people were addicted to heroin, he always had a steady supply of revenue, so he would never lose money. That individual is currently sitting on about 17 charges related to drug distribution, including 3 Class C felonies. So we're obviously hoping that that individual stays incarcerated for a long time, because it kind of sets the example that if your intention is to come here to our area to sell these drugs, to destroy our community and profit from it, we're not going to tolerate that. So that's how we're dealing with the economic problem. Then obviously too, as far as the public safety problem goes, the sheriff has been very gracious in giving us whatever time, tools, and energy we need to address these issues. Our officers are out there basically fighting it on a street level, day in and day out, and we're also educating each of you as far as how you can kind of avoid some of those public safety risks. So, and then when it comes to the public health side of it, we've been working very closely with our healthcare partners, just not only making them aware of this situation, but also kind of tracking. And what we can see is if there's a certain clinic or thing like that that is much higher in their rates of prescriptions for these drugs than other people, than other clinics in the area, we start to kind of maybe work with those people and say, hey, you're just handing out these drugs like candy. Maybe we should have a more strict criteria on how to go. We obviously want to have people have a good quality of life, but we also don't want to have unintended consequences of flooding our area with all these drugs. So, next one. So if we kind of take it out piece by piece by piece, we work slowly along the line until solving the overall problem. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen overnight, but I think we have a good approach to it. And with each of you keeping your eyes and ears open, I really think we have a good leg up on things. So here's my contact information. Obviously, if you see or hear anything, I don't know if anybody has a pen or whatever else, but if you need something, just talk to me later. My office phone number and also our anonymous drug tip line. You can call that. You don't have to leave your name. You don't have to leave your number or anything. You can just call in, let me know what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and then it falls on me to follow up with it and take it from there. So, and also my email too, if you guys prefer the email. It's a great way to get a hold of me. I will say this, the biggest source of information and the biggest thing that helps my investigations is each of you.